The Haunting in the Attic. I always knew our new house had a peculiar vibe, but I never expected the horror that lurked in the attic. The first time I saw it, I was exploring the dusty, neglected space, searching for some old treasures left behind by previous occupants. As I moved deeper into the attic shadows, my flashlight revealed something that sent shivers down my spine. A shadowy figure hunched in the corner. Its form was indistinct, like a wraith cast from pure darkness. Panic coursed through me, and I stumbled backward, tripping over old boxes and struggling to get back downstairs. When I told my family about it, they dismissed it as my imagination. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something malevolent had taken residence in our attic. Night after night, I heard strange noises emanating from above, like whispers in a language I couldn't understand. My sleep was plagued by vivid nightmares of the shadowy figure, reaching out to me with elongated, bony fingers. My waking hours weren't much better. I'd glimpse it out of the corner of my eye, lurking in the corners of rooms, but it would always vanish when I turned to confront it. Desperate for answers, I began researching the history of the house. It turned out that a family had lived here decades ago, and their youngest child had disappeared mysteriously, never to be found. The child's name was Ethan, and the resemblance between his old photographs and the shadowy figure I'd seen was uncanny. One night, I decided to confront the entity. Armed with a makeshift talisman, I climbed into the attic. The figure loomed in the darkness, its inky tendrils stretching towards me. Fear threatened to consume me, but I held my ground, clutching the talisman and chanting an incantation I'd found in an ancient book. The room trembled, and the figure let out an unearthly wail. It writhed and contorted, its form breaking apart like a shattered mirror. In the end, all that remained was an eerie silence, and the attic felt emptier than ever before. As I left the attic, I couldn't help but wonder if I had truly banished the entity or merely suppressed it. The house felt lighter, but a lingering unease remained. I couldn't erase the image of the shadowy figure from my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it might return one day, seeking vengeance. The attic's malevolence. Ever since we moved into our quaint Victorian home, I'd felt an unsettling presence in the attic. It was as if the darkness up there had a mind of its own, and it watched us with a sinister curiosity. But I was the only one who seemed to notice, and my family dismissed it as overactive imagination. One night, unable to sleep, I decided to investigate the attic. Armed with a flashlight, I crept up the creaky stairs. As I entered the attic, my breath caught in my throat. There, in the far corner, stood a shadowy figure, its outline vague and twisted. I froze, my heart pounding, as the figure turned its featureless face toward me. Dread washed over me like icy water. It had no eyes, no mouth, yet I felt its malevolence seeping into my very soul. The darkness seemed to pulse around it, like a heart of pure evil. Terrified, I stumbled back down the stairs and slammed the attic door shut. My family was still asleep, oblivious to the horror lurking just above their heads. I knew I had to confront this entity to find out what it wanted, or else it would consume us all. In the days that followed, I researched the history of the house. It had been built in the late 1800s and had seen its fair share of tragedies. One story stood out: a young woman had gone mad and locked herself in the attic, never to be seen again. Her name was Sarah, and the more I learned about her, the more I became convinced that the shadowy figure was her restless spirit. One evening, I climbed back into the attic, determined to make contact with Sarah's spirit. I brought with me an old photograph of her that I'd found in the house's archives. I lit a candle and whispered her name into the darkness. The attic seemed to come alive with a chilling breeze, and the shadowy figure appeared once more. This time, it didn't feel malevolent but mournful. I showed it the photograph, and it reached out, its form becoming more defined as it touched the image. Tears welled in my eyes as I understood the truth. Sarah had been trapped in the attic, unable to move on, and she wanted someone to remember her. With a heavy heart, I promised her that I would keep her memory alive. The attic's malevolence dissipated, and the house felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. I knew that Sarah's spirit was finally at peace, and I could sleep soundly once more. The attic's silent secret. Our new home was a dream come true, nestled in the quiet countryside. But as the days turned into weeks, I couldn't ignore the eerie sensation that something was amiss. It was always there, lurking just out of sight, in the attic. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I decided to investigate the attic. Armed with a flashlight, I ascended the creaking staircase. The attic felt colder, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. As my light pierced the darkness, I saw it an indistinct figure huddled in the corner. My heart raced, and my hands trembled as I trained the beam of my flashlight on the figure. It was a shadowy silhouette, shapeless yet undeniably sinister. I took a step closer, and it seemed to retreat, always just out of reach. The attic held secrets, and I was determined to uncover them. I began researching the history of the house, and discovered a tale of tragedy. A family had lived here years ago, and their daughter, Emily, had disappeared without a trace. Her face, captured in a faded photograph, bore an eerie resemblance to the shadowy figure in the attic. Night after night, I ventured into the attic, trying to communicate with the entity. I spoke Emily's name, hoping to reach whatever remained of her. The figure would appear, its form shifting and undulating, as if trying to respond. One fateful evening, I brought a locket that had once belonged to Emily. As I held it out, the figure drew near, its inky tendrils caressing the locket. I whispered words of comfort and understanding, promising to help it find peace. The figure began to take shape, slowly coalescing into a recognizable form. It was Emily, her face etched with sorrow. She reached out to me, and I could feel her anguish and longing. I knew then that she was trapped in the attic, unable to move on. With tears in my eyes, I vowed to help Emily find closure. I contacted a local medium who performed a ritual to release her spirit from the attic's grasp. As the ritual concluded, I felt a rush of cold air, and the attic grew still. Emily's spirit had found peace, and the house felt lighter, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. I knew that I had done the right thing, but I couldn't forget the haunting image of the shadowy figure in the attic. A silent secret that had finally been laid to rest.